Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian owned, not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live or listening to the replay. Always want to do our best to bring positive and great content from the vault and the episodes that we have. Today we're on episode 174 and we're talking about what numbers are you counting. This is a very important episode. We could go quote unquote 100 million places, but we're going to talk about some things, from a trustee perspective. Traditionally, we have trustees listen to the vault that want to talk about content related to trusteeship, thought process, mindset. So it's great to have a general discussion. This is Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and doing an episode live. Once again, we thank you all for listening to replay. And we're just going to go ahead and hop right into it, which is what numbers are you counting? And really wanted to put a point of emphasis and to go over this topic in a very straightforward manner. A lot of people contact the vault, and the numbers that are being counted traditionally are self. And so for that reason, when we get into the numbers, when we look at the books of different companies, we see that there might be a personal interest in it. And so when we look at the numbers, we're looking just at the numbers. We're counting the numbers of the companies, family situations, things of that nature as trustees. And so, what numbers are we counting? Definitely had a conversation with the mentor, the senior mentor uh, coming into trusteeship, and said, "Hey, this sounds like this might involve some accounting." And the senior mentor said, "Well, we hire accountants." And so when you think about as a trustee, what numbers are you counting? You're counting how many people are managing the books. As a senior, as a senior trustee or an executive, it's about being able to uh, look at mindset and say the numbers that we're counting is not only dollar amounts, it's also people. And so this is where we get into a clear divide, or when people come to the vault, they say, what would be the purpose of counting the numbers? There are people that have come to the vault and have said, hey, we didn't count the numbers. We haven't counted the books in a while. They're not counting. They're not keeping track. They're not keeping track of the numbers on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, barely on a monthly basis. And we see this through and through. Why? Because entrepreneurs and investors, they just want to go out and get more money. They want to make money. They go by the saying of making money. Well, if you're making money, what numbers are you counting? Are you counting what you made? Are you counting loss? Are you counting depreciation of assets that could be acquired? What is the end goal of the purpose? So the numbers are important because we're dealing with different forms of accounting. We're dealing with accrual, we're dealing with cash method, you're dealing with different pieces of information that when you're talking to an account, you want to know how the numbers are going to be. There's different principles. So when we talk to trustees and we say be familiar with GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles, that's something that's common in school. It's something that when you talk to an accountant, you're going to ask them and they're going to say yes. They're familiar with that. It's the same thing when we sat in front of an accountant recently said they're on the level of oh yeah, one of the big four when it comes to actual accounting, and they said they're familiar with the International Accounting Standards Board. So that's how you know what numbers you're counting. That's how you know what the accounting is counting properly. What numbers are you counting? It's always about the numbers that we're counting, ladies and gentlemen. In business, we see it time and time again. Of all the greats, it's about the numbers growing. Why? Because that's what's being counted. They're not counting how many people you hired. They're not counting how many people you fired. They're counting capital. So excited for this weekend. I'm thinking about the numbers that are being counted. Definitely appreciate everyone for tuning in live. If you have any questions, feel free to type into the chat. What numbers are you counting? We're counting profit. We're counting depreciation. We're counting taxes. We're counting interest. These are things that are very important when it comes to a company. Sometimes people don't measure out how fast they grew their company, how fast they can reduplicate that process again. We hear so many entrepreneurs say they hit a plateau. Plateaus are hit because practices have become common in general. And so, in turn, there needs to be a radical change to the business model of growth and focused on growth again. Doubling multiples, focused on multiples, which is geometric growth again. What numbers are we counting? How many books we read, or how many deals we do with the business deals that we do? And it's interesting to see so many entrepreneurs that have sold their business and they say that they can't disclose the number they sold it for. It's really interesting. See how that number can't be counted by public people, but it can be counted by the person that received it privately? What numbers are being counted? The public numbers are being counted. What about the private numbers? Are the private numbers being counted? Yes, it is. Why? Because we go back to what we talked about, accounting. That's one of the things that we know is to be true. So for all the trustees that listen, we definitely say as trustees, that's someone that you definitely want to be out there contacting, talking to, uh, you know, industry environments that have those individuals in them. We would just say we encourage you to count the numbers. There's so many trustees, so many people that have gone through that they don't want to look at the numbers for whatever reason. The way you get comfortable with the numbers is start rating. A lot of trustees ask, how do you keep track of the numbers every day? Well, if you dedicate 9 minutes to doing the tracking of the numbers for the company every day, it's not going to be hard. But some people say, oh, I don't have growth every day. Well, that's how you know you might want to do something different to get more growth. The numbers don't lie. If you say that the numbers are stagnant, does that mean your effort is stagnant? No. As entrepreneur investor, we definitely are excited about growth and we always stand for growth. And it's really exciting to know that everybody has that mindset because that's what it takes to grow a company is a growth mindset. So what numbers are we counting? We're counting growth. It might sound so simple, but growth comes in many forms. Some people say, well, the numbers, for the company, that's always the telltale sign. There's a saying that goes out that says your business will never outgrow your self development. And it's gotten the industry in a situation now where people want to invest more in themselves, which is great. And then some people don't want to go do anything, take the radical changes that are necessary. And then there are some that are willing to do that, bet on themselves, and actually do all the things that they read in the books. So now they can start counting numbers again instead of how many books they're reading. And that's how growth is done. And we definitely say self-development is definitely probably one of the biggest. How much money is going in self-development every year is growing. I mean, the environments just get more and more expensive every year, which is exciting to a degree because you just the more what they say you get what you pay for. What you put in is what you get out, and so the education, what you demand from education and education cost are numbers that should be counted. How much money has been invested into the research and development of this company, to the research of the company? How much money has been spent on education for your family estate? How much money has been spent for the family to grow, publicly or privately? How much? And that should be counted. What numbers are you counting? Thank you all for tuning in live or listening to the replay. Always want to, just come before you all and really have a dynamic conversation about certain topics that we see come up, in the private a lot. And we know that if you have a team around you, if you have people that are counting the numbers for their company, it's a little bit easier to count your own numbers. Being transparent with the numbers, having a solid system in place to count the numbers monthly, possibly daily. But what are the numbers that you are counting? So interesting. You could definitely have debt be an asset on the books, not just a liability. Definitely want to throw that out there to people and for them to look into that because when you're able to do that, it really shows that a lot of companies are buying people's debt. And when we say that, we mean it from even just the institutional perspective. A lot of collection agencies still out there, and so you can see what's going on with those companies. Those companies are holding people's debt, and they're some of the larger companies out there holding people's debt. And they're still, how do they make a profit if they're holding debt? But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the numbers, though. Counting that on your books like they're counting that on their books is very, very important. Great opportunity there. So just really excited to talk about this topic. What are the numbers you're counting? Because if you don't have even accounting for it, how do you move forward? So, we challenge you to be out in the environment. It's interesting because we see some of the bigger boards, they definitely have longer term players, but partially because they went through quite a few players to get bigger players on their team. And that's what it's all about. And we really do appreciate and respect that position. Hey, that's the way that we have to play. That's the way that we have to play. So, the numbers are being able to go through the numbers and actually find some of the best relationships that we can possibly find in business and in capital as well. So, uh, thank you all for tuning in live or listening to the replay. Feel free to reach out, Christian at Trust Christian. This episode was really just catered to just talking about the subject and bringing light to it so someone can really go and say, okay, what do I need to look at? Really just bring a sense of urgency and importance to the subject of the numbers. We're in an environment in the private sector where that's all that's talked about is growth, whether it's the numbers of growth or the numbers of the decline of growth or the slowing numbers of growth. It's all about the numbers. So when we're sitting in those environments, that's what's being talked about is the numbers. Very repetitive on that perspective, and then they're even talking about that in just different industries, different markets. But the numbers are being talked about and counted for sure in every sector, in the private sector for sure. So it's just rather important for everyone to know and talk about even the numbers on the public side. A lot of public numbers are almost trying to be disclosed. But when you look at the public side, people say that there's a limit on the public side. There is no limit. There's a growth mindset, and if you're counting the numbers of growth right now, things are growing at great rates. Slowdown in growth is never bad. A lot of people would say it is in some of our sectors, and really that's just their opinion. But uh, you know, there's an ebb and flow in cycles, and we will enjoy counting the numbers up or down, uh, because, ladies and gentlemen, the true mark of the true players are making money in a down market, or cash flowing, we should say, in a down market, and cash flowing in an up market. And that's why it's really never those terms are being used in the private sector. It's just traditionally capital is just being allocated wherever it needs to be allocated. And then we're talking about the different industries and the sectors and the businesses that are really enjoying the growth right now. And as you all can see around the world, there's a great growth right now, the all-time highs in the market, and we still haven't seen much of Brexit happen. We were supposed to see that happen. We haven't seen that happen yet. You just see the market is just enjoying a great wave right now. And to see so many people still wanting to jump in, it's almost like when Bitcoin was at 16,000 and then it jumped to 20. I remember at 16,000, I saw investors selling off at that point. It was awesome. I saw an investor literally sell off at 16,000. He came and he did this dance. And, investor we know, but he sold off. And it was just interesting to see that he sold his position at 16. And then right after that, it went to 18. And we were like, oh man, you don't regret it? He's like, not at all. Because when he did it, he knew he was selling out of the position. Sells out of the position. It goes to 20. It might even went to the 21, 22, and then it just spikes down. It just goes on a miserable slope, and it was a wild investment, very wild investment. These are things called transfers. What was interesting is how uh, you can count the numbers, but whose numbers are you counting? It's not what numbers are you counting to, it's whose numbers are you counting. Because where there's capital being allocated, there's a need for attention, and attention is definitely going to be applied to markets that have, you know, great market caps right now. Uh, the market cap dropped dramatically and just fine. The technology is being developed. It's already created a presence. The elite schools have programs. The banks have programs that are developing the technology, just like all the rest of the technology that's being developed around, societies. So definitely appreciate you all. Feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. We're going to do our best to keep bringing you awesome episodes. Feel free to reach out and share an episode topic that you might want to see talked about, and we'll go forward from there. So we'll hear from you all. Peace and blessings.